If you're a breastfeeding mom trying not to waste your time, this video is for you. My name is Amber Ginn. I'm a board-certified lactation consultant with over a decade of experience, and today we're going to be talking about common myths and things that I wish more breastfeeding moms knew. First and foremost, let's talk about pumping. There are so many misconceptions about pumping, and it sets a lot of moms up for failure. Coming in hot with the number one thing that I think moms struggle with is understanding when and why they should start pumping. Have you ever heard the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none? When you try to feed at the breast exclusively and pump, that's what happens. Our bodies aren't designed to produce enough milk to feed our baby exclusively at our breast and also produce a significant amount of milk when pumping. I always tell moms, understand why you're wanting to pump and then decide when you're going to start pumping with a clear plan. You don't want to stress yourself out or end up being bad at both, because what oftentimes happens is we have moms trying to latch their baby and feed at the breast, and then baby's not getting enough milk because they're also pumping. But the mom is worried about their pumping output because they are also feeding at the breast, and it is just the worst of both. So working with a lactation consultant to figure out when you want to pump, why you want to pump, and having a clear plan will set you up for success and avoid a lot of stress and overwhelm. Another big thing that I see be confusing to new moms is the different types of breast pumps. We want to remember that we have primary breast pumps and secondary breast pumps, and their use cases are different, and we want to make sure that we understand that so that we don't waste our time or cause any issues for ourselves. Primary breast pumps are double electric hospital grade breast pumps, something like a Spectra 1 or 2. We want to make sure that that's what we're using when we're working on building or maintaining our supply. A secondary breast pump would be something like a Lacevo, a Momco's, something like that. And those can be really useful, but they should not be introduced if you're trying to build your supply or right when you're starting out. And if you're an exclusively pumping mom, they're probably not the right choice for you to use for more than a handful of feeds per day. If you're a mom returning to work, I also highly discourage moms to rely on a secondary wearable breast pump for their work pump. We want to pump with good suction and a stable motor if it's going to be our primary milk remover. There. Pumps are expensive and confusing, and I completely understand how some moms see a wearable and they want to use that one because it seems so convenient, but it's really important that you pick the right pump for the job to avoid issues down the line. Another big myth that we see moms come to us with all the time is assuming that the flanges that came inside of their pump box are the flanges that they should use. Most breast pumps come with 1 or 2 flange sizes, and they're almost always the wrong size. Usually they're a 24 millimeter and a 27 millimeter, or maybe a 24 and a 28. Sometimes they're just a 27. And 9 times out of 10, those are not going to be the right size for 90% of moms. It's super duper important that you work with someone or that you figure out a really good way to assess your flange size so that you use the right flange fit. The right flange fit not only makes pumping so much more comfortable, but it's going to allow you to get as much milk as possible in the least amount of time so that you can get back to doing the things you really enjoy doing, which is probably not sitting around attached to a breast pump. If you got your pump covered by your insurance, you most likely get lactation care covered by your insurance as well. So if you're feeling overwhelmed about anything related to pumping or breastfeeding, be sure to use those benefits. The number one myth that I see clients deal with is that they think breastfeeding is supposed to hurt or that pain is normal. And this couldn't be further from the truth. Breastfeeding should be comfortable and enjoyable. It can feel overwhelming and confusing when you're starting out because it is a learned skill and it's probably not something that you or your baby have ever done before. Even if you're a second or third or fourth time mom, each baby feels different. So we're always learning how to nurse our new baby. With that said, pain is never okay. If you are dealing with pinching, pulling, stabbing pain, burning pain, anything like that, it is not normal. When you are first establishing a latch, it can be common for you to feel some discomfort for the first 1 to 5 seconds, but anything that continues outside of the first day or so should definitely be evaluated. If you are feeling any amount of discomfort during your breastfeeding, you should get some help. A lot of moms think that breastfeeding is just hard and it hurts and that's okay and you just power through it and maybe it'll it'll get better, but that is almost always the opposite of what actually happens. When our body is talking to us and telling us that something is not working, it usually does that with pain. And it can be easy to try to power through it, but it is almost always the absolute worst thing you can do. If you are dealing with pain, it could be from a variety of reasons. Typically, it's related to baby's latch. It could be something anatomical for you, or it could be something anatomical for baby. Maybe your latch looks good from the outside, but it's really hurting, and you definitely want to figure that out. Not treating painful latch and not treating pain during breastfeeding can cause a host of issues, including but not limited to things like cracked skin, mastitis, and just really not enjoying something that I believe God designed to be a really lovely experience for a mom and her child. Another myth that we see moms struggle with all the time is feeling like their baby is not doing well with breastfeeding because they're wanting to eat frequently. Please understand that in the first couple of days, and even sometimes across the first couple of weeks, we will have clusters of cluster feeding where your baby is going to seem like they are absolutely insatiable, and that is completely normal. What we want to look at for our baby is that their weight gain is on track and that their diaper output is also on track. If your baby is gaining weight in a way that is satisfying both you and your pediatrician, and baby's having good poops and pees, then we don't need to worry if they're eating frequently. If this continues across time, definitely bring it up. Or if you're just feeling like something is off, definitely bring it up with your lactation consultant. We're always happy to get a little bit more curious and see what else could be going on. But generally speaking, a baby wanting to eat frequently is not an issue. One issue that I see a lot of moms deal with is worrying that their supply is inadequate or that their baby is struggling at the breast because their baby will take a bottle after breastfeeding. So I want to say this as delicately as possible because I don't want to make any moms feel guilty. But when we introduce a bottle into a breastfed or bottle-fed baby's mouth, their natural instinct is to suckle. When we give them a bottle that has milk in it, they can't very well suckle and choose not to drink. So sometimes we introduce a bottle and we think baby is hungry. Wow, they must not have gotten enough food because they're taking this whole bottle. And in reality, they really don't have a choice outside of downright refusing the bottle. Most babies will get sleepy and come off the bottle, or if a baby is struggling with active bottle refusal, they will push it away or turn away. But many babies who are enjoying breastfeeding or who enjoy suckling will happily take extra ounces, and they don't necessarily need it. If you notice that you are feeding your baby a bottle after breastfeeding and they take it, definitely be curious about what else could be going on and why you're using that bottle in the first place. We have a lot of pediatricians that push for supplementation when it's not medically indicated. And while I am a big supporter of parents feeding their babies in whatever way they want, I want to be sure that they're doing that from a place of them being informed and understanding why they're making the decisions that they're making. A big myth that I see that absolutely wrecks mom's supply is them arbitrarily pulling dairy out of their diet for no damn reason. I get so frustrated when this happens. It happens for a multitude of reasons, and I'm going to talk to you about two of the main ones. One thing that we see happen a lot with clients is they come in and their baby is having issues with gassiness, their baby is having issues with spitting up, and they brought it up to their pediatrician, who immediately told them just to get rid of dairy because that's probably what's causing the issue. A true dairy allergy is very uncommon. It's extremely uncommon to see a true dairy allergy. That doesn't mean that you don't have 5 or 6 girlfriends whose doctors told them that their baby had a dairy allergy. I definitely believe that happened. But the instance of it being a true diagnosable dairy allergy is really uncommon. Outside of that, another reason that moms pull dairy out of their diet is they assume that it's a food that they just shouldn't eat because some babies do have issues with it. And we always want to remember that the best thing we can do for our children from the time they start solids and even before is expose them to as many things as possible so that their likelihood of allergies is lower. So us avoiding eating things like dairy is not really doing a good service for our baby, and it can set them up for issues across time. On that same note, parents oftentimes come to us and they are using formula for their baby for a variety of reasons, which we totally support. A lot of times these parents are using a sensitive formula because they assume that because their baby is having some gastric issues, that's the best choice. If they're not getting a good deep latch, if they're having any issues with their oral anatomy, that can manifest as gastric issues, and we want to figure out what's going on upstream instead of trying to treat problems downstream. Another big issue that we see moms grapple with is when they can introduce a bottle or a pacifier. We have a lot of IBCLCs who are very anti-bottle, which I completely get where they're coming from, but I think it's an antiquated view of breastfeeding in the modern age. At the Latch Link, we're very supportive of parents feeding their babies however they want to, and we always want to approach it from a place of understanding mom's goals so that we can make a plan to get them there. A lot of moms worry that if they introduce a bottle, it's going to ruin breastfeeding. So let's unpack that. In reality, introducing a bottle is a very personalized choice, and it should be done based on your goals. If your goal is to feed your baby exclusively at the breast for the first 3 months, you probably shouldn't introduce a bottle for the first 3 months. If your plan, on the other hand, is to return to work at 8 weeks or 12 weeks and that your baby is going to be with a caretaker while you're at work and you want to be sure that they're able to use a bottle easily, then introducing a bottle at 4 weeks or 6 weeks can be a really great idea. The main thing to remember is that you use a bottle that works well for your baby. So typically we are going to want to have a nipple that passes that triangle test, meaning that it is not super duper wide at the base. We're also going to make sure that we use a nipple that is as low flow as you can find. And we want to be sure that if we are giving our baby a bottle, that we don't skip pumping. If your baby is eating, you should be removing milk from your body. As far as pacifiers go, this again is a very personal choice. A lot of babies do very well going between passy and booby, and it's no issue. But I do highly recommend working with a lactation consultant when making decisions about introducing pumping, bottles, and pacifiers, just to make sure that you don't cause any unnecessary hiccups along your journey. One thing we have a lot of moms come to us really struggling with is combo feeding. They're curious about what this means about them as a mom, what this means about them across time, and if it means they're never going to be able to exclusively breastfeed. And I just want to tell you that however you're feeding your baby, that is great. It's super great. You're feeding your baby and you're doing a great job. And you should not be worried about trying to tick some box that you feel was put on you by someone else. If you are genuinely struggling though with feeling like having to use formula or donor milk makes you feel like a failure, I do want to tell you that is complete bullshit. You're doing a great job. With that said, I do understand how moms can feel a lot of mixed emotions about utilizing formula or donor milk. If you're using donor milk, that is not a failure. But there are a couple things to keep in mind when it comes to formula specifically that just help you and your baby be healthy and happy across time. With formula, we want to make sure that we're preparing it according to the guidelines on the back of the can or the package. So look at the package and prepare according to that. That's my number one tip. I see a lot of moms with a bottle of water and their formula and they're mixing it up on the go, and hey, you do you. I see a lot of moms just making formula on the fly with room temperature water, scooping it out of the can and just shaking it up and going. While that's common, we do want to make sure that we do our best to mitigate any risks for our formula-fed babies. So definitely follow those instructions on the package. If you are a mom who's unable to give your baby breast milk from your body and you're needing to supplement with something, I am a big fan of moms researching donor milk. You can get donor milk from milk banks. It's typically quite expensive and occasionally can be covered by insurance if your baby has a qualifying condition, but there is also peer-to-peer donor milk. Definitely do your own research and see how you feel about that. There are risks to every choice we make as moms, and it's super important for us to be informed and make decisions that we feel comfortable with. If you are a mom who is combo feeding and you're supplementing, understand that having to do that for a season does not mean that you're going to have to do it across your entire breastfeeding journey. We have a lot of moms come to us at the Latch Link struggling with their supply and having to use donor milk or formula, and there's usually a lot of levers that we can pull to, if nothing else, help increase that supply so that you can use a little bit less of that supplemented formula or donor milk. Another really common myth that we see moms dealing with is the pressure to bounce back. Moms are happy to eat that extra scoop of ice cream or cheeseburger with French fries when they're pregnant, but for some reason, once they're actively feeding an entire human being that's constantly growing with their bodies, they feel like it's time to start cutting back. If I could give you one tip, please do not worry about restricting your nutrition or your calories for at least the first 3 to 4 months postpartum. Don't even think about it. Eat everything that you want, nourish yourself well, and do not feel like that is a time to be cutting calories, because what oftentimes happens is we have moms come to us struggling with their supply, and we realize that they're just not eating enough. And so their body is not prioritizing producing breast milk because it's not being fueled well. So don't make that rookie mistake that so many moms make. Eat enough food so that your body can prioritize making milk. One huge thing that I wish breastfeeding moms really understood And it's that when your kiddo is bigger, they will not care how you fed them. I know that some IBCLCs might absolutely come after me for this with a lot of statistics about allergies and health, but as a mom of an almost 18-year-old and an 11-year-old, I can tell you what my kids really cared about is that I enjoyed being their mom. So please don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to do what you think other people want you to do or to do what you think society needs you to do. Just enjoy this precious and brief time with your baby and understand that you are doing an amazing job.